What's good everyone, it's Fizzy here, we're back in with another video. So last week I made like a summer Afrobeat type of beat, and after I made the video I realized I did not mix that beat at all. And I was thinking to myself like, why doesn't it sound good? Why doesn't it sound good? I think when I was just recording I just forgot to mix. So in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to mix your sounds or how to mix your beats and everything. So yeah, let's get into this. So as you guys can see, I have an 8-bar intro here. Then I follow that up by having a 16-bar verse, which is here. And then I decided to have another 16-bar chorus. So it will be 8-bar bridge and then 8-bar chorus. So I just duplicate that over again. So that's the whole structure of the beat. So let me show you what it sounds like before the mix and everything. I'm now gonna go to the main chorus sound, which is here. Yes, it may sound like the production is nice and everything, but it just sounds way too messy. So what I'm gonna do now is that I'm now gonna start mixing. So the first thing we're mixing, send everything to your rack here. So as you guys can see, I'm gonna go to all, and I'm now just gonna add in all my sounds. So I'm gonna hit Control L, and Control L just adds it straight into the mixer automatically. Or in this case, I'm using Command L if you're on Mac. Then I'm gonna do the same for the rest of the sounds and hit Control L. So the first thing you need to do is that you need to level your sound. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to highlight everything, and then I'm just going to bring everything down lower. One thing that I would always say is that go to your busiest part, which is typically your chorus, and I'm just going to highlight that section there. I'm now highlighting my chorus, and what I'm now going to do is that I'm now going to bring these levels up and down depending on what I want to be the more prominent sound. So one advice I would give to you when it comes to leveling is like the important thing when it comes to mixing, in my opinion. If your leveling isn't right, everything else is, again, later on, is just going to sound like messy and muddy. So one thing I'll say is that trust your ears. Don't really worry about these knobs here, and don't worry about the meter. Just trust your ears when it comes to mixing and leveling. So now that I'm happy with the mixing, I can now start to add in effects and panning. So what I'm actually going to do first is pan. And what pan does is basically bring a sound either to left or right. So let me show you what I mean. So look at this shaker, for example. It's directly in the center, and this is what it sounds like. If I decide to now pan it to the right, this is what it's going to sound like. And it's literally all the way to the right. And then if I pan it to the left, it's going to be all the way to the left. So that's what I'm now going to do. So I'm just going to reset this now, and I'm not going to pan my sounds. So now that I'm happy with my panning, I'm now going to start mixing. When it comes to mixing, I personally like to say that when it comes to slot number one, it's always in my EQ mainly. I don't have an effect as my number one, because look at it like as if it's a chain. For example, if your number one effect is a reverb, for example, when you're mixing in like slot number two, it's also mixing in that reverb, and sometimes you don't really want that. So what I would always recommend is that your number one be your EQ. Everything I'm using can also be used as a stock plugin. For example, I'm using Neutron Elements because that's an EQ that I personally like to use, but you could obviously use the stock Fruity Loop, you know, parametric EQ. So yeah, I'm just personally using this, but again, everything that I'm doing now can be used with a stock plugin as well. And when it comes to EQing, basically all you're doing is you're messing with the frequencies. Because sometimes, say for example, I have a pad in there, but the pad and the synth that I'm also playing have like the similar frequencies. I can duck some of the other sounds and pan some of the other sounds so that I can have the two elements in there and it can still sound as if they're, you know, there's nothing going on with them, like there's not something taken away from them. So I would, again, when it comes to mixing and EQing, trust your ears and don't look at the screen. For my kick, as you can see, I added a fruity clipper. That's because the kick, though it's punchy, it's not really punching through when playing alongside the log drum. So what I decided to do is that I also added a fruity soft clip. And then in this place, I'm also going to add in a transient shaper. And again, this is just to allow the punchiness to come through for the kick. So now the kick sounds more punchy and it cuts through the mix a lot better. And another way that you can also do this is by using a saturation knob as well. I really like the sound of the main melody for the chorus, but I just feel as if like it's a little bit dry. So what I'm now gonna do is add on a delay. Also, really important to know, don't mix the sound by itself. For example, if I'm playing this log drum and then I'm mixing it by itself and it sounds okay by itself, in the general scheme of the whole mix, it might not even apply, like it might not even sound good. So one thing I'll say is that try to always mix with everything on. It might get loud, but that's why you level everything off so you have the right frequencies and the right volume for everything. But make sure that you don't mix in mono. So in terms of mixing, I've added in everything. So I'm gonna run through my chain. So one of my synth sounds, I just added in the EQ. I don't really think it needed anything else because on the stock, like sound off the VST, there's already a bit of effects as you can hear. So I really like the sound as it is already. Next is the pad, and then on the pad again, I just have an EQ. And again, I'm really happy with the sound. There's not really much going on. It's just the pad. There's no need for delays, some effects and everything, depending on the sound you're going for. But again, I just want things to be, you know, a bit more simple because the drums are a bit more complex. Next, for my tremolo signal, I have a tremolator on, and then I also have this EQ. And this is what it looks and sounds like. And again, I'm really happy with the sound of that. Next, again, is another synth that I have, and I have this more pan to the right. And that's the sound that I went for. So this is what the EQ looks like. Again, I took out some of the lows and a bit of the highs as well. Next, I have this kick, and this is what my kick looks like. With the kick, I'm really happy because next I added on this transient shaper, and then I also added on this soft clipper as well, just to give the kick a bit more punchiness. Next, I then have this on the snare. I don't really want to do too much to the snare because the snare already sounds good. I just wanted it to EQ a tiny bit just so that it can fit in and stand out a bit more. And again, I'm really happy with the way that sounds. Next, I then have my main chorus melody, which is this pluck. And this is what the EQ looks like. And I'm really happy with that. Next, I then have this delay. And then I also turned down the mix levels to about 31%. That's because I didn't want it to be, the delay to be overpowering, but I also wanted it to still be there. So I just added in, the delay just a tiny bit. Next, I then have this ozone imager. Again, this is just to make the sound in the two ears a bit wider and just sound as if, just sound a bit different, that's all. Next, I then have this log drum. And again, because it's a really deep log drum, I got rid of some of the highs, and then I also got rid of some of the lows as well. As you can see here, it's just a bell that I'm using, and I just ducked it down a little bit because again, it was just really strong. So I then paired up that log drum with this other log drum here. And this one, as you can see, is a bit more thin. So I boosted up this frequency here. And I also added in a decapitator as well, because just to allow the punchiness of the log drum to pull through. Because again, it is a really thin log drum. So next, all I have on this shaker loop that I have is just a reverb. And again, that's just to create some space. And then for my other sounds, there was actually no EQ or no effects on them. So when it comes to also mixing as well, if you over mix, you're going to take out a lot of the frequencies, a lot of the things that you like about the sound in the first place. So less is always more in some of these cases. So in this case, I went for less because I don't think they actually needed any EQ or any effects, because they actually came from a really good sound place, which was splice. So because of that, I didn't really need it. I don't think there was any need to add in any effects or any EQs, anything. So while going through that channel, I actually realized I didn't mix my bass. So I actually have a bass sound as well. So we're just gonna do that now. So I'm happy with the bass sound and everything. The bass and the kick really complement each other well. So that just shows to me that my mixing is actually, good and everything. So with that done, what I like to do is that I now go to my master. With my master, there's not a lot that I really do to it. Depending on what you have, I use Ozone Elements. Ozone Elements has the master assistant, and sometimes if I'm really lazy, I'll just use that. So let me show you what it does. With the master assistant and Ozone Elements, it's going to ask you what intensity mastering do you want, and what is the final destination. Is it for CDs or is it for streaming? In this case, it will most likely be streaming. So I'm going to go to next, and then it's just going to wait for the audio to play. So I'm not going to play the audio. And then after it's now added in its own effects and everything, I can now start to tweak it however I want to tweak it. So again, I feel as if the mid-range is a bit too much. So I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. I'm now happy with that. I'm really happy with the mixing there. And again, the Ozone really done a lot of the work for me. So it wasn't really anything too hard for me when it comes to mastering. But again, when it comes to mixing, first thing first, level your sounds. So that's also known as gain staging as well. So that's number one that you should do. Number two, in my opinion, is to pan your sounds to the right places that you want them to be. You want it a bit more to the left, a bit more to the right, add it wherever you want it to be, but make sure everything is not in the center, because then everything is going to sound a bit muddy and crowded and everything. You want to start to pan things left and right. Next is that you add in your effects. So number one for me is always going to be EQ. Add in, maybe a reverb, a delay, a low pass filter or something, but always make sure that your number one is always an EQ. That's my personal opinion. And then next, again, is then lastly is just mastering. Again, if on the off chance I didn't have, you know, ozone element, I would actually, let me show you what I would actually use instead. I would also use Fruity Limiter. Fruity Limiter is also another one that you can use for free. And personally, I don't use Fruity Limiter because, again, I have ozone elements. But with Fruity Limiter, you can actually start to, you know, mess with the gain, with the saturation, with the ceiling, and everything that I was messing with in ozone elements, you can also do on Fruity Limiter. So whatever VSCs you have for, you know, mixing and mastering, whatever you feel comfortable, the same concept applies to everything. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to comment down below what you think of the beat. And yeah, that's it for me, everyone. Make sure to also look at the links down in the description. I have some free loops down there as well, so make sure to go check those out as well. But yeah, that's it for me, everyone. Peace.